Hi guys, it's Paula and I hope you are doing well. Today I thought we could have a little chat about this guy right here. Is this the most talked about palette ever on YouTube? Possibly. I am not sure. I think so. Here's the reason why I want to talk about it. Over the past year or so, I've heard some rumblings in the beauty community that this palette goes bad. I am not exactly sure what goes bad means. I have makeup, particularly eyeshadow, that is 20 years old and I still use it. Every once in a while I run across an eyeshadow that causes my eyes to water, and I think that's probably one sign that an eyeshadow has gone bad. And sometimes I do think that maybe an eyeshadow that's about 10, 15, 20 years old does lose some pigmentation, but I also sometimes think, well, the quality just wasn't there 20 years ago. Like, the eyeshadows of today are so much better quality than the eyeshadows from 20 years ago. Of course the pigmentation isn't there. It never was there. So I always think things like that when people talk about eyeshadows going bad. Now, I'm not here to question what somebody says about their experience with their makeup. That's their experience. But the truth is, in the back of my mind, I'm kind of thinking, I don't think that's going to be my problem. I think that this is a really pigmented palette, and if it loses a little bit of pigmentation, it's still going to be an awesome palette. But yesterday, a friend of mine on Instagram, her Instagram account is Makeup Puzzle, posted about this palette because she is doing pan in every palette with me and all the other ladies that are doing this project. And this is one of the palettes she was trying to hit pan on. And she posted that this palette has gone bad. And I really trust her. She's somebody I've been friends with on Instagram for quite a while. We follow each other, we support each other. And when she posted that, I don't know why her post got me thinking more than other people's posts, but when she posted that, I thought maybe I should take a look at my palette and see what's going on with it. And if for some reason I think it has gone bad, because I still don't really know what gone bad means, but I want to investigate this further and get a better understanding of what it is that multiple people have described as far as what they're experiencing with their modern Renaissance palette. Now, I bought this palette in August of 2016 and I have used it a total of 7 times so far in 2.5 years. So this is what it looks like. Basically, I bought it and one of my friends on Instagram said, let's do a 1-day challenge where we all post a look using this palette. And I did that. And then another friend reached out and said, let's do 1 week, 1 palette with the Modern Renaissance. And that ran Monday through Saturday. And I did 6 looks with this palette. And both of those were within like a month of me getting that palette. And I believe a lot of people got this palette around the same time. And I haven't touched it since. So what I was thinking was that maybe I will do an eye look with this palette once a month or once every couple months and just kind of compare the looks to see, is this palette changing? Is the performance of this palette changing? Is the quality of this palette changing? Am I noticing any signs that this is going bad for me and my usage of it? So that's what I'm here to do today. Hopefully this video won't take too long. I'm not like doing some elaborate eye look. I'm just trying to use a few of these shades on my eyes to get a feel for how they perform and then compare it to what I recall from August of 2016 and kind of compare it to any future looks I do with this palette. So I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's what is about to happen. One of the things that I keep thinking about in regards to all of my makeup in general, there was a big conversation going around kind of towards the end of last year and possibly into this year about getting your money's worth out of your makeup. And that phrase can kind of be a trigger for some project panners, some makeup users. Like, some people say that when they completely finish a product, they have gotten their money's worth. And then other people will argue, well, I used half of a product and I want to throw it away. Haven't I gotten my money's worth out of it as well? I used it for 6 months straight and I feel like I've gotten my money's worth out of it. And I think it's an interesting concept when one has so much makeup that they have to realize that by completely using up one product, other products could be going bad. So what does getting your money's worth out of a product mean? I don't have an answer to that and I don't have an opinion on that. I'm just doing the best I can. But that conversation got me thinking about a show on TLC that I used to watch called What Not to Wear. That was the show with Stacy and Clinton, and some random poor person would get nominated to be on the show. They would pack up every stitch of clothing that they owned and bring it to their studios, and then Stacy and Clinton would tear them down and tell them why they should not be wearing basically every piece of clothing that they have been wearing for possibly their entire adult life. I mean, it was interesting and frustrating and kind of sad to watch, and part of me felt bad for the people that were chosen to be on the show, and part of me was like, thank God Stacy and Clinton got there in time because these people needed help. But in the end, they were given so much money to spend on a new wardrobe that was more in fashion, better fitting, whatever, more work appropriate, whatever the case was. But one of the concepts that came up many times during that show was like cost per use. A lot of the people that were on that show had trouble with the concept of spending so much money on one piece of clothing. A lot of these people had never spent that much money on one piece of clothing. And I think this can apply to an eyeshadow palette as well. Basically, Clinton and Stacy were arguing, yes, this shirt might cost $100, but every time you use it, you can divide your usage of that shirt into the amount you spent on it, and the cost per value goes down. And if you wear that shirt 100 times over the next year or the next 2 years, then you've only spent it $1 per wear. I think that's a really interesting concept and discussion to have, whether it's in regards to your clothing or your makeup. Now, I was raised in a family, and I'm sure a lot of you guys were raised in families where these kind of concepts were never discussed. The women in my family owned one blush and maybe 2 lipsticks and maybe a pressed powder, and that's about it. Eyeshadow really wasn't a thing that the women in my family used much. Maybe they certainly didn't have an eyeshadow palette. Maybe they had a couple of eyeshadows. I don't know. Makeup really wasn't a thing, and clothing was something that they wore until it could turn into a rag. So basically, the clothes that the women in my family wore were clothes that stayed around until it was so thin and threadbare that it was falling apart and see-through. And then they turned it into a rag to be used for household cleaning. I mean, this is the family I grew up in. I am certainly the first person in my immediate family and possibly in my extended family that has bought more clothes than I can wear to the point of becoming rags, and has bought way more makeup than I need or could possibly use in a lifetime. So these concepts are kind of new to me, and I certainly think that if I gave my mom the cost per use argument, she would laugh at me in the face and tell me it was total nonsense, because that's just a made up thing that the clothing industry has sold to you to get you to buy more stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I always can see both sides to every argument. But if we are using the cost per use analysis for this palette, I think this palette runs for $44, $42, something like that. But if I have used this palette 7 times prior to today, then my cost per use as of today is $6.28 per use, which is ridiculous. If I use this one more time after today, my cost per use will have gone down to $5.50. So I think it's kind of an interesting concept when we're looking at our excessive amounts of eyeshadow that we own and getting our money's use. Obviously, the ideal situation is that my cost per use is pennies or a fraction of a penny. That would be the ideal situation. But right now, we're right around the $6 mark for this bad boy. So I'm going to quickly put together an eye look using this palette, and then we will talk about whether or not there has been a change, a perceivable change in the quality of this palette. Okay, I have scooted in. I wanted to tell you that I have primed my eyes with the Urban Decay Primer Potion. I also have a little bit of concealer on my eyes, but otherwise there is no other product on my eyeballs, on my eyelids. So I'm going to start by going in with Tempera right here and dusting that on my brow bone and a little bit into my crease. Using the brush that came with the palette, I'm just going to use the fluffy end. Okay. It's powdery and dusty, just like I remember it being from two and a half years ago. And now I'm going to just jump into Love Letter, which is this pinky red shade right here. And I'm going to lightly try to apply that into my crease and up into my transition area. This shadow looks brand new, but I'm pretty sure I've used it at least once out of the 7 times I've used this palette. I'm using the same brush, the same end of the same brush.
My hand really gets in the way when I'm using this little brush.
That looks about how I wanted it to look. I'm going to do the other side. Okay, I'm happy with that so far. Next, I'm going to go in with the flatter end of this brush. There clearly seems to be some Venetian red on the end, but that's okay because I am going to go in with Antique Bronze, and if a little red gets mixed in there, I'm fine with it. This shadow also looks pretty untouched, but I know I used it at least once, and I am going to be applying that basically all over my eyelid. I do have a little bit of fallout on my cheek, but honestly, I think I remember having that when I used that 2.5 years ago as well. All right, I'm gonna go in and do the other eye. No fallout on that side. I'm going to switch the brush around again and go back in with Love Letter, that same pink shade, and just kind of run it through the crease and blend the 2 shades together. Okay, so far so good. I'm going to take my pencil brush and run Antique Bronze on my lower lash line.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
All right, and then I'm going to take the same end of the brush that I used to apply Antique Bronze over to my eyelid, all over my eyelid, and apply a little bit of Love Letter on my lower lash line right underneath where I just put Antique Bronze. Okay, I'm going to take Vermeer, that is the pinky shade, the pinky shimmery shade right up here. Apply that to my inner corner and maybe pop a little on the inner third of my eyelid. Just gonna pop that on with my finger, I think. A pinky. It still feels really creamy to the touch. Oh boy, oh my gosh, I'm gonna end up painting my whole eyelid with it. That went in way further than I thought it would. Okay, Vermeer is still going super strong. I ended up covering so much more of my eyelid than I thought I was going to, just because there was so much product on my finger just from tapping it in. And this product still feels very creamy compared to, well, I didn't really touch the other products, but that product still feels, that shadow still feels really creamy. Should I go back in with Antique Bronze or just leave it? I'm just gonna leave it. Okay, I am going to apply liner and mascara and maybe a lip product, and I will be right back. Okay guys, I'm back. My makeup is completely finished and this is the finished look. I'm gonna scoot in so you can see how the eyeshadow looks all done after it's been on my eyelids for a couple of minutes. I also wanted to show you this. My eyelashes are almost touching my eyebrows. Oh my gosh. Look at that. That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay, so I had a good time working with these shadows. I thought they performed well. I have no complaints about the condition of the palette. I won't be able to comment on the longevity of these shadows. One thing that some people might experience with eyeshadows that have gone bad are that they fade away to nothing, and that after a few hours the shadow has basically disappeared. Maybe I will leave a little comment in the description box to say whether or not I had that happen. I'm gonna try and remember to do that. But overall, I thought the eyeshadows applied nicely and I liked the finished look. Some factors that I think could be impacting different people's experiences with this palette are like the climate that they live in. Do they live in a very humid climate year round? Do they live in a very dry climate year round? Like, what's the weather? Is it like just 100 degrees and humid every day of their life? Because maybe that could break down a palette much faster than, for example, Chicagoland, where I live, and we have 4 seasons, and about half the year is quite dry, and the temperature is either cold or moderate. Like, we keep the house at a steady 70 degrees for about 6 months out of the year. So maybe that's helping my palette to last a little bit longer than other people's palettes. Obviously, I don't really have a great memory of my experience with this palette from 2.5 years ago, so I really can't speak to whether or not there's been a change in the quality of this palette from what I recall 2.5 years ago versus today. But all I can say is that as of today, I had a good experience with the palette, and based on the results that I got, I would What you doing, man?
Mom, where does Daddy go wake up?
In a bit. Based on the results I had from today, I would certainly not consider decluttering this palette, and I don't think that my palette has gone bad. Check down in the description box below to see if I have anything to say about the longevity of this eye look. But yeah, so far so good. Let me know what you guys think about this, and let me know how often I should do an eye look with this palette and kind of an update with my experiences with this palette to kind of monitor the quality. I am your personal quality control girl. And let me know what you think as far as timeline. Should we do it monthly, every 2 months, every 3 months, something around there, so that we can check back in with this palette to see if it has gone bad. Also, I am thinking that should I ever hit pan on a palette in my Pan in Every Palette project, maybe I will roll this one in next and get as much use out of it, since there are multiple reports of this palette going bad sooner rather than later. And so whatever that means, I don't want that to happen to me. So maybe I will roll this into Pan in Every Palette if I ever hit pan on one of the palettes that I'm currently working on. Thank you to Makeup Puzzle for inspiring this video. Your post spoke to me for some reason, and I'm so sorry that your palette has gone bad on you. It's a bummer when that happens, and this video is in no way invalidating your experience or anyone else's experience with their palette. This is about me kind of chronicling and documenting my experience with this palette so that we can see if there are changes going on with this palette. I'm really happy that as of today, it's going well so far. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.